Welcome to the Medicine and Faith podcast. My name is Dr. Raul Enad from Cadenza Medical Clinic, Ave Maria, Florida. In here, we're going to discuss the convergence of medicine and faith, how the timeless wisdom of the Catholic Church converges with modern medicine to help us live a happy life, a healthy life, both mind, body, and soul. Welcome. Let me share to you a story of a friend, a father of two young girls, who recently told me that he's going for divorce. So what happened? What he shared to me was very significant because it affects many people. This is a very common phenomenon nowadays. I'm going to explain to you the neuroscience behind gaming, digital technology addiction. I'm going to explain to you how this is related and how this can be fixed, because you're part of this. How a comprehensive approach to this problem would map out your path to freedom. This is Dr. Enad from Cadenza Medical Clinic, Ave Maria, Florida. Please watch at the end of the video because we are going to explore what digital fasting is, as it is as good as caloric fasting. So let's begin. We're faced with this epidemic of digital addiction. We are hooked to digital media. Increased use of digital platform, social media interactions, and gaming has actually caused severe damage to the brain. It has decreased activity in the following areas of the brain related to executive function, meaning your ability to decide or to analyze things for good decision making. The prefrontal cortex, area of executive function. This has been known by functional MRI that people who engage in digital engagement, social media, gaming, has decreased activity of the prefrontal cortex. The area of the brain called amygdala is also affected, which is the center for anxiety, depression. The activity is heightened. So people become more depressed, more anxious. They will be looking for AI companion. And this would just be a perpetuating cycle of being addicted to digital media, artificial intelligence, and the devastating effect of isolation, anxiety, depression. Digital communication platforms often give rise to ego-central bias, where individuals tend to overestimate their ability to communicate. They think that they're sensitive to the emotions of others, and they think that they're so emotionally attached to a friend, a digital friend, a friend from the digital platform, without even knowing a facial contact. This is very devastating because their ability to communicate attitudes, emotions, or sarcasm through digital means can potentially cause inaccurate diagnosis of those emotions. So we have to make a point of making a fasting from digital media. There's such thing as digital dementia when we become too reliant on digital platform. For example, Google Calendar for appointments. We used to remember dates that we need of significant dates, but now we're so reliant on Google Calendar. It is not sharpening our brain to memorize and to retain information. What about GPS? Before, you would know where to make a left turn, but now because of GPS dependence driving, that executive function related to spatial orientation is diminishing. This is what's happening with the young man who is trapped in his gaming. Consequently, he made bad decisions in his life because his ability to make a good decision making is impaired. Internet addiction is also known to be associated with reduced gray matter. So it becomes a trap. You become impulsive, so there's no way out. College students with increased levels of Facebook engagement or usage demonstrated worse outcomes on cognitive tasks such as free recall activities. As I said a while ago, digital devices, smartphones, and frequent use of social media have been linked to cognitive impairments resembling dementia. Frequent exposure to emotionally arousing content in TV, social media also heightens stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. All these things associated with digital addiction is through the path of the dopamine reward system. It's almost like the same mechanism as being addicted to sugar, and we're going to talk about that also. The more you engage in social media, the more the need for you to engage more. Why? Because the dopamine receptors multiply, and needing more dopamine surge from the likes in social media, such that it is impossible you get trapped in this area of being addicted to digital platforms. The same area of the brain that controls the different pleasures of the brain. That's in the dopamine reward system. If you're addicted to internet, most likely you'll be addicted to something else. Sugar, food, opioid. You have the propensity to develop that. Even sexual addiction. So let's start a proposition. Number one would be, it has to go hand in hand, because the center of this addiction is in the dopamine reward system, and the same impulses produce this pleasure to produce dopamine, sugar, and social media and digital media. This has to go hand in hand. It would be pragmatic to, number one, stay away from sugar. Sugar triggers more sympathetic response and increases cortisol. The more you'll have more sugar craving and also salty food craving. Digital addiction is associated with insomnia. The light that goes into your eyes decreases your melatonin that is needed to sleep. Taurine decreases. Serotonin decreases because of the lack of empathy, lack of joy. The hippocampus also decreases in size, and that's where joy is. It is a center for joy. GABA also decreases, which is needed to calm the brain when you're digitally addicted. So this has to go hand in hand. Fasting from sugar, and especially processed food. Why? Because the processed food is laden with high fructose corn syrup that would trigger more dopamine and triggers the need for more reward. Digital media and social media interaction has to be approached promptly. Do away with your phone. Practical matter would be to do away with your phone away from your bed, not on your bedside. Because there's always the propensity for you to look and check who you need to respond to. Smartphones at the bedside is not a good idea. Number two, the penetration of those eyes, of the light into your lens, decreasing your melatonin, which is supposed to increase when it's dark. Stay away from smartphones before you go to bed. During the daytime, you have to set apart a park area for your iPhone. Make a plan. At work, it's so common to bring the cell phone and to text to everybody, use social media at work. It gives you this confusion in your brain of being multitasking. Multitasking is your enemy. You're not able to focus and be satisfied with your job, because that job will always be inadequate because it is half-baked. Your focus is not in your job, and it's prone to mistake as well. On the next layer that I'm proposing, a triangle with this fasting at the base, the next layer would be corporal mortification. What is corporal mortification? To be healthy and elevating it to a transcendental level, corporal mortification can be doing exercise. Get up with a heroic minute, as Saint Josemaria Escrivá would say. In the first minute when you get up, kneel down and pray a thanksgiving and make a plan. Maybe commit on maybe 200 push-ups. Let's put it that way. When I was watching the video on upper body workout, the total push-ups that video specifically prescribed to is about 200 push-ups. Do it little by little. Squats, for example, you can do at the bedside. Practical thing. You can do 20 and then increase it to another 20 with a goal of 100 every day. These simple things can happen. Second would be, make a step in terms of doing some aerobic exercises. Aerobic exercises meaning 60 to 80% of the maximum heart rate exercise. Approximately, the heart rate 60 to 80% would be about 120 to 140. That's the heart rate or activity that you need to sustain for 40 minutes. And this had been proven to increase your memory, increase the circulation of the hippocampus, which is the center for happiness and memory. So you become more joyful instead of being depressed. It also is this kind of threshold that would decrease your blood sugar. Remember, sugar is inflammatory. The less sugar in your body, the more you become healthy. The more you'll be less predisposed to develop cancer, because cancer loves sugar. Exercise triggers increase of BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. This BDNF is like a fertilizer. It will trigger the brain to aspire to do exercise, more exercise. So it becomes a good spiral up to doing more exercise. The more you exercise, more BDNF, and the more you desire to do more exercise. Trust me, if you start one single step of 10 minutes of walking and do alternate speed, like a semi-hit or high interval intensity training, you don't really need to run. You don't really need to hurt your knees. But remember, when you do these things, exercising, elevate it transcendentally. You'll find meaning of what you're doing. What I'm trying to say is offer a prayer when you're doing some exercise. Offer for the Pope, for your family, for yourself, for friends who probably need to engage in something who is not within your reach. More so, it would also be good to ask a friend to do exercise with you. Not that you're utilizing him or using him for your intentions, but to reach out, to give company, to be charitable with your time with your patient or with your friend. So exercise can be made a corporal mortification. What about cold shower? What it does is that it switches the sympathetic tone to parasympathetic tone. Even 3 minutes of cold shower. Sympathetic, remember, is the inflammatory portion. Parasympathetic makes you rest and digest, where you can absorb your trace minerals, your antioxidants, your vitamin C, and the production of glutathione. Your probiome is flourishing because it's not killed by the sympathetic tone. When you're doing cold shower also, there is a study that showed that there is a biogenesis, meaning the mitochondria multiplies. Mitochondria is the center or the factory for ATP or energy. So the more factory that's producing energy, the more energy you will have. What about sauna? It might not be accessible to everybody, but it's highly encouraged because it has fruitful benefits. Sauna and then cold shower. On top of this layer, from the fasting, from digital technology and sugar, and corporal mortification for exercise, above this is meditation. Why is meditation important? Meditation in itself affects the circulation of the brain, preferentially increasing the circulation to the hippocampus, which is the center for joy and memory. It decreases the circulation to the amygdala, which is the center for anxiety, depression, and anger. So what are the components of meditation? There are two elements that are included: guided breathing and mindfulness. When you say guided breathing, you're guiding yourself to breathe slow and deep. There is a variation of your heart rate in relation to your respiration when you do this. When you inhale, heart rate goes up. When you exhale, heart rate goes down. So when there's a variation between your heart rate going up and down when you inhale and you exhale, that is the variation that you're talking about. The more you have variation, the more you're doing this deep, guided breathing, your heart rate variability increases, which is associated with parasympathetic tone, switching away from sympathetic fight-flight to the parasympathetic tone where you're relaxed. You can integrate this guided breathing as a prayer. In year 400, the great Saint Anthony of the Desert would practice like this. It's a Jesus prayer. When you inhale, count 4. You say, Jesus, Son of the living God, and then you hold, you exhale, you say, have mercy on us sinners. Of course, that's at the back of your mind, quiet. So when you inhale, Jesus, Son of the living God, have mercy on us sinners. So it qualifies your humility in front of God and adoring God, acknowledging Him as the Jesus, the Son of God, and asking for petition to heal yourself, have mercy on us sinners. When you hear also the sound of your breathing, when you inhale, the sound is Yahweh. If you acknowledge the power of Yahweh, the breath of life, heaven is ecstatic. You're adoring God. Remember what Adam's first sound when he woke up. It was Yahweh, a very profound breath of life that only God can give to us. And then when you're doing your meditation, after this guided breathing about 25 times, then you're focused in front of the Blessed Sacrament. You can ask the Holy Spirit on what the Holy Spirit wants you to pray about, not you wanting to pray about. That's an act of humility. And then you go to the motions of meditating on the Passion of Jesus. Many scenes from the presentation of the child Jesus in the temple, as Simon prophesied his passion, up to his passion and resurrection. It is all his unconditional love for us that we're meditating through his passion. Saint Paul of the Cross, who is the founder of the Passionist, would say, don't ever dare leave your room without meditating the Passion. The same meditation of unconditional love meditation through his passion with a guided breathing would do these benefits. Increase in the circulation of the blood to the hippocampus. Hippocampus is a center for happiness, joy, and memory. So no wonder the nuns who were studied were more sharp at 100 years old. They're happy in the community, and they're compassionate, most of them. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that would make you happy, and it's captured in the pill SSRI or Paxil, Lexapro, and all those kind of drugs, naturally will increase. So you'll be more happy. Another way naturally to increase your serotonin is also by exercising. Corporal mortification becomes a source of joy through the serotonin going up. When you meditate, GABA increases. GABA can be converted from glutamate to GABA with the help of the vitamin B6. That's why vitamin B6 is also needed for you to sleep. The sympathetic tone also decreases. Sympathetic tone also curbs the effect of cortisol, which is a stress hormone that triggers the effect of increased blood sugar. So is there a solution for stress? Is there a better way of managing stress? It's not sitting in the beach. It's looking into the problem, looking into the source of your anxiety, which you can introspect and have a good examination of conscience. Am I gaming too much? Am I using Facebook too much? Am I using digital media? Am I preparing food for my family? Am I getting rid of sugar? And offer sacrifice of getting rid of those sugars for the salvation of many people. When you meditate, it affects your soul. Saint Teresa of Avila would say, if you continue praying vocally and not meditate, you don't need to ask the devil to push you to hell. You are heading yourself to hell. That's very deep. You really need to meditate, because if you don't meditate, according to Saint Alphonsus Liguori, you will continue to be tempted and you will fail. And these are all related. When you fast, you also conquer this addiction. You also conquer the body that leads you to more desire to be near Him. You more desire to be going to the Blessed Sacrament and adore Him. Fasting is a medicine for the body and the soul. Fasting from digital media, from sugar, helps your health. It decreases your blood pressure, your blood sugar. It decreases your propensity to develop mental illness like anxiety, depression, anger. You become more sensitive to the emotions of others. You become more empathic. You become more compassionate, and your soul will definitely shine. This is Dr. Enad. If you like this video, please drop a comment. We can discuss, share, so that people might appreciate this and maybe help by our discussion.